morning, or welcome to the conference at the end of the world. My name is Theodora Wildcroft. Give us a little wave in the chat if you can see us okay. Just then we know the tech is working. And there's this pause where we wait for a forest of hands. Very nice. Apparently there are 39 of you alive with us, which is gorgeous.
Hey!
Yay! See, it's so nice. It's a nice thing to do. Okay, so we've discovered a fun limitation of Crowdcast, which is in terms of how many people we can have on screen at once. So we'll be cycling our roundtable folks in and out as we go, which will be great fun for me and for them, but we'll figure it out. It's all good. But before we do that, I'm actually going to hand over just for a moment to Vivian Asimos to open the conference. And give you the screen. There you go.
Ooh, I'm big. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for coming. We've been seeing how many people in the chat are from around the globe, which is super exciting. Welcome to the conference at the end of the world. I'm Vivian Asimos, and I'm one of the co-founders of altac.uk. We're a new organization that is providing a home for alternative academia in its many forms. So if your research is alternative to the traditional ways of academic doing, then you have a home with us. And if you yourself are alternative to what academia is used to seeing, then you definitely have a home with us. We want to thank every single person who has donated to our cause. We are made up of new researchers, of independent scholars, early career researchers. We don't have any kind of institutional funding, whether from a job or other sources. So everything that's going on is being done out of pocket. And one of the things that we would like to change is unfunded and unpaid labor in academia. So one of the things that your donations is going towards is actually paying people for their hours and hours of work going into making this conference happen. And it's also going to be going towards all of our future endeavors, including a peer-reviewed journal. So we're going to be actually releasing an edition of a peer-reviewed journal, which is going to be featuring papers from this very conference as our first couple of editions. So be looking forward to that. If you want to know more information about that, be checking out your communications from us. You can also contact me on either Facebook or Twitter, and I can give you even more info. You can still donate throughout the whole day. There's a little donate button right on the bottom. That's directly to us, not to Crowdcast. So you can still donate if you find yourself really enjoying the conference. And that's all for me. Just thank you so much for coming. Have a really great time. Take breaks when you need to. And with that being said, I'll throw you back over to our panel moderator for this roundtable, Theo.
Thank you. Okay, so this is where I have to give me 1 second just to invite another guest up. I feel like we should have hold music for these moments. Awesome. Okay.
Okay.
So we're all here. So at the moment we have Sitna and Meg-John on screen. We will have David and Matt in just a moment. But just to begin with, let's introduce you to the people here. So Sitna Quiroz is an assistant professor in the study of religion at the Department of Theology and Religion at Durham University. She holds a PhD in social anthropology from the London School of Economics, specializes in the anthropology of religion, and has experience doing research in Mexico and Benin. Her research and teaching focus broadly on the study of Christianity and its different manifestations in Africa and Latin America, and the different ways in which religions, cosmologies, and worldviews shape the post-colonial experiences of people in these continents. Her latest research has focused on the study of Pentecostalism, gender, and kinship in the Benin Republic, and explores the ways in which Pentecostalism contributes to shaping contemporary subjectivities and regimes of intimacy within the family and people's kinship relations. Meg-John Barker is the author of a number of popular books on sex, gender, and relationships, including Queer: A Graphic History, Gender: A Graphic Guide, How to Understand Your Gender, Life Isn't Binary, and Joyce When, If and when and if you want to, Rewriting the Rules, The Psychology of Sex and the Secrets of Enduring Love. More? Did I get most of them? I think I got all of them. They've also written a number of books for scholars and counsellors on these topics, drawing on their own research and therapeutic practice, which is brilliant. Okay, so I'm going to see if I can hopefully... we're having a little trouble getting David's browser to cope with Crowdcast. So in the meantime, I'm looking for Matt. There's now so many of you on the call, I have to scroll through. I can search. There you are. Okay. So as I invite Matt back on the screen, let me tell you that Matt Coward-Gibbs is an associate lecturer and PhD student in sociology at the University of York and is the editor of the forthcoming volume, Death, Culture and Leisure, Playing Dead. His work focuses around death and dying, culture and community, pleasure and leisure, and deviance and transgression. Matt is a steering group member of DACnet and is currently working as part of an interdisciplinary team to develop a national hub for research sensitivities. Awesome. So we'll figure out David's participation hopefully later. It's very sad. We know he's here. He's trying very hard to get in. But in the meantime, we'll start right where we are. So I have a nice easy question for you to begin with. Life has changed in many ways for almost everyone in the last 4 months. So given that and given the current situation, what statue would you like to pull down that you think hasn't been pulled down yet? And tell us how your sourdough start is going. Let's start with Sitna. How are you doing?
Hello, good morning, and thank you for the invitation to participate. Well, the statue I would like to pull down is Cecil Rhodes' statue.
Yeah,
do I need to
full
explain
agreement
why?
there. I think you have the opportunity to, if you'd like to.
I think it's time, you know.
Well overdue. It would send a message. Is there any statue you'd like to put up in its place? Putting you on the spot. You hear me okay? I wondered if there's any statues sitting that you'd like to put up in the place.
Sorry, I was like, I thought you were asking someone else. My son.
No, I'm wondering. I should be clearer.
No, I don't really want any statue there at the moment. I think, you know, I think it's a time to just transform this reverence to statues that we have at the moment. Yeah,
that's yeah. I think that's a really great point. All right, let's come to Meg-John then. What statue would you like to pull down? How's your sourdough going?
I was doing sourdough long before the pandemic, so it's not a hipster thing. I really like sourdough. But yeah. Oh, I think there might be a bit of maybe other people might need to mute because there's a little bit of echo coming back. But yeah, it follows on nicely from Sitna, really. I realised it's definitely all statues as far as I'm concerned. Like, we just don't need them for so many reasons. I mean, I looked up the stats on how there's only 2.7% in the UK statues that are women, which are historical and not royals. Like, most women's statues are unknown women or fictional women or like royal women. And then the percentage on people of color is even worse. Like, one thing was like only 3 in 1,000 were black people. So, you know, but it's that whole like, you know, who gets to be a statue? You know, it's vastly unevenly distributed. Who, you know, in our current culture could even make it to statue status. And I think there's a bigger conversation about celebrity status in general, and also all of the unpaid and undervalued labor that goes into making that person what they were. and just, generally this individualistic idea that we celebrate individuals rather than collectives and movements. So yeah, I'm like, let's get rid of a lot of them. Let's prioritize the eugenicists and the colonizers and the enslavers, but we'll also get rid of the rest as well.
I think that's a really good idea. So yeah, it's nice to know that we're all in agreement. How about you, Matt?
Well, I spent a long time thinking about this, and I think I just want to start by saying I don't think this is really my question. I'm a cis white man. I live in one of the richest countries in the world. I have no lived experience of injustice or poverty. It's not my time to talk. It's my time to listen. On statues more generally, though, I think whenever we carve or create or cast a statue, we almost like make a deity of it. It's this phallic, stiff object. If it's not too early for Freud, probably too early for Freud. And then it's in this that we take this perception of benevolent actions of an individual and they're brought to the forefront and we forget everything else. So for me, it's about listening, it's about education, and it's about taking time to reassess. Nice.
Yeah, definitely. And hopefully a symbol of something bigger, really. That I think that none of us are as concerned about statues as we are about much bigger issues within the world as a whole, I think. But yeah. Okay, so let's move on to a slightly thornier question then. The role of academic institutions may be radically different a few years from now, given a number of different evolving situations, the virus being only one of them. Given that, what can scholars do beyond, and both beyond and within in fact, traditional institutions at what we might consider to be the end of the world in many different ways? Given how my screen's rearranged itself, let's start with Meg-John, if that's all right.
Absolutely. Well, I have a particular perspective on this, given that I've been in academia my whole life and I left last summer. So I've had a year outside of academia, and it's left me with many thoughts and feelings about this. I think once you're on the outside of a system, you see things a bit differently, and maybe you see a bit more than you could see on the inside of it. And I think generally I'm seeing the pandemic as potentially this, obviously a horrific thing to happen, but also a potential to really see which systems are broken, which systems are built on really terrible foundations and they need dismantling, and the foundations need building in a very different way. And obviously we see that with what Black Lives Matter has highlighted about the criminal justice system, but I think the education system is no different. I think it's incredibly non-consensual system. There's a lot of harm, privileges certain individuals and not others. And I suppose just to throw in a few things I've noticed about academia, more clearly being outside, is a real question about assessment. What are we assessing when we assess people and give them grades? I think how much of that is really just assessing privilege. I've also thought a lot about the review process, which might feed into what you're thinking about with your new peer-reviewed journal, and also Vivers. And again, what does it mean when a lot of people, a lot of marginalized people, a lot of women are really trained, not, to sort of value other people and other people's ideas far more than their own. And to some extent, a lot of groups are even trained that it's actually dangerous to question those in authority, and that you must accept any criticisms that come at you. And then you're receiving a critical peer review, or you're in Viva, asked to defend yourself and your ideas. Again, it's such an uneven playing field. And what are we doing to people who've really been traumatized in many ways over their lives, and suddenly throwing them into that situation where there's other people who've been really trained for that situation their whole life and taught that their ideas really matter. I just think there's a lot of injustice and a lot of sort of violence in academia that's unseen a lot of the time, that we really should start to question. That's my thoughts.
Yes, I'm aware amongst other comments coming up that Naomi's popped up pointing out that as an autistic person, getting an accessible Viva was a very difficult experience, and I'm aware of what they went through to get that, really. Yes, I think that these are interesting questions to be asking ourselves. I guess I'm always, before we move on, the question I would always pose at this point is, who has the power to create the change? I think that often these conversations are had amongst groups of people that don't actually have the power to create the change. And I think that's part of what we're struggling to figure out with Altac is there a way of setting up something different that can still sustain us in different ways. It's been good fun so far, but it remains to be seen whether it will provide us with a modest living, for example. We'll see how it goes. Okay, let's come to Matt, actually, just to I'm playing with it's easier for me because of the way around things are on the screen. So again, what can scholars do at the end of the world?
Well, I think from looking at what Altac have already built on, and the names of people I see in this room that I know, and people that I'm yet to meet today, and what's happening, I don't see what scholars cannot do. I think we need to push for this responsibility to act and to advocate. I hope we've pushed past the kind of zenith of disciplinarity at this point, and we can move into those more honest conversations. We can look for sensitivities in research and researchers, which is what I'm passionate about, and we can move towards this place where actually emotion and empathy become a part of our dialogue, and are not something that is relegated to the corner of, well, this is something you don't write in a methodology, say how much you struggled with something or how much you struggled to engage, because that also has a place in academia. And actually, if we don't acknowledge these things, we're not presenting truth, and our narrative should be about truth.
And do you think that those changes are possible to make from within academic institutions as they are?
Oh, again, and just drawing on what you were both saying before, I'm not sure. I think those conversations sadly tend to happen quite far down the ladder, where I sit at the kind of bottom of the food chain, in terms of this kind of structure that is teetering and breaking apart in front of us. I'd hope it's possible to change it from the inside, but I think maybe we need an approach that tackles it from both the inside and from the outside.
Okay. All right. And Sitna, what's your response?
Yeah. Well, I do have several things to say about this question. We must not forget that before COVID-19 hit and the crisis that we're living in started, the university was already in deep crisis. So we're seeing that the neoliberal university has been already crumbling for some time. And we have still an unresolved dispute regarding pensions and pay, and it's not getting any easier. So I think this crisis is helping us to think what kind of university we want in the future. And part of me thinks that, universities are institutions that have survived the test of time, but it's also because they've managed to change throughout times. And I think this is a very clear example of this interplay of tradition and modernity, right? Like tradition exists because it's able to adapt to the changing times. But I think part of me as an academic, I got into the sector because I really think universities are important. It's just that there are things that at the moment are not working. And that's where I would like to dissect a little bit these different parts of what it constitutes a university. On the one hand is the core goal or the core objective, which is, from my point of view, the production of knowledge and their spaces of critical thinking. On the other hand, we have the structure, both physical and the people that constitute it. And the other is the means of communication, this knowledge and this critical thinking. So there are different things here that we need to really tease out and see what is working, what is not working, what we need to get rid of, and what we need to rescue. So from my point of view, I think in these three different areas, there are things that need a really serious rethinking. And I'm going to start precisely with this idea of the core objective, in the sense that it's production of knowledge and spaces of critical thinking. If we think about the etymology of university, it comes from the Latin universitas, and originally they were sort of thought about these communities of scholars and masters, right? And I think that's an element that we need to rescue, that community of thinkers. And on the other hand, like the idea of universitas also in Latin conveys an idea of a whole, right? And that's something that we need to rethink. Like, for example, to what extent the kind of knowledge that has been produced has tended to reproduce or perpetuate Eurocentric forms of knowledge. So I think this is something that we need to really, this idea of wholeness and universality needs to be made more plural. And that's why my idea of decolonizing at the moment the university is so urgent, because it has been this Eurocentric knowledge that has perpetuated structures of inequality, a capitalist and a neoliberal status of the world. So I think we really need to shift the attention to decolonize and include marginal voices that have not been included so far. On the other side, when we think about the physical structure, I think we really need to get rid of the neoliberal marketization and corporatization of the university, and to rethink what kind of communities of knowledge we want to build, how we want to operate. And linked to that is also the medium of communication. I think, one of the biggest innovations that this crisis has confronted with and kind of made us take seriously is precisely the internet. These kind of online platforms that have been so, they were marginal and now they're the mainstream because we don't have anything else. So I think we need to be creative into really seeing how we can take this on board and not to be hijacked by the neoliberal university, but to really appropriate these spaces as spaces of production of knowledge and communication in our own terms, right? Because that's a risk that I see, that universities with this shift to online teaching, they're trying to increment their exploitative practices, and it's just like terrifying, right? So I think we need to resist. So when you see how can we change, I think we all as scholars, as community of scholars, I think it's a time to resist, to protest, and to be creative into what kind of spaces we want to appropriate and create, in order to continue producing knowledge and encouraging critical thinking that I think is quite fundamental in the times that we're living. We are facing challenges of global scale, like environmental challenges that we need to really take seriously, and that's why incorporating the voices and knowledges of people around the world who for a very long time have been resisting and putting alternatives out there, they need to be taken seriously. And I think with the movement Black Lives Matters, one of the things that came up to the fore is like how much organization has been happening at the grassroots in many parts of the world, and it just needed like this kind of moment to kind of really bring it together. So I think that's the other point I wanted to make. We really need to go beyond our little ivory towers, and perhaps it's a moment to connect also with other activisms and other movements that are on the ground. So kind of think our communities just beyond the structure of the building, and really go out in the world and make it relevant to resolve or face the problems that we're challenging as a planet. So that's what I had to say.
Thank you. Fantastic. Thank you. I think you touch on most of the really important points. I think I'm so aware of one of the differences between being inside an institution and being outside of it, and being outside of it for me is there's no way I can pretend to be apart from the grassroots of the communities that I research and that I work with, because they pay my rent. I mean, and I'm sure Meg-John would say similar things. Is that we have to be involved in those conversations. I have done more theoretical, engagement with the communities of my research than most people with an academic position, primarily because that's where my conversations are being had. They're being had both with other scholars and with the communities that I research. And I think that if we can embrace those kind of spaces, some really exciting conversations can be had. I'm also aware personally of the unwieldy nature of most academic institutions. I know that myself, one of the things that myself and friends had been concerned about for a while is the inaccessibility of physical conferences, both in terms of their kind of accessibility for physical disabilities, but also in terms of financial accessibility for people. And we had kind of, played a game of kind of contacting various large conferences for about the last 12 months saying, will you accept online submissions? And every one of them saying, no, we won't do that. No, we won't do that. And now here we are in a situation where every one of those conferences is cancelled and ours is the conference that's going ahead. So it's interesting because, it is possible to do these things, but it's possible that it is not possible to do these things from inside of a major institution in many ways, to put this kind of thing together. So yeah, I think hopefully it'll be, we have some exciting few years ahead. Okay, I'm already aware of the time, and I'm aware that we're coming up on 2:30, and our first panels begin at 1:45. We have some great kind of comments going in the chat, which is fantastic. We have, Lismar pointing out that accessing privileges is exactly what academia is for. I think it is best. Hopefully, academia should be that. And we have a long comment here from Chris, who is talking about how that point where we choose to change the institution we move from attempting to change the institution from within to actually working outside of the institution. And I think that's a complicated question we have to ask. And I'm well aware of from Naomi's perspective of how many disabled academics have been talking about this kind of access for years, and now all of a sudden it's possible. Why wasn't it possible before? And the answer is, of course, it was. It just wasn't a priority, I think. So yes, and yes, Alison saying yes. Those of us that are encouraged, I think there has to start to be conversations about who's getting paid. I think we have to get a lot less squeamish about that. I like many early career academics, I get invited to take part in events all the time, but not paid for it. You want us to keep doing the work, you need to find a way to support the people outside the institutions as well as inside them, I think, in many ways. Fantastic. Okay, let's take just the last moment. I hadn't prepared this question for you, but I'm just wondering if there's anything in particular you're looking forward to hearing today. And let's start with Matt.
So much.
You look forward to today?
So much. Yeah, I wish I could be in 3 places at once in some cases. I think there's so much interesting discussion that is going to happen today, and I really look forward to seeing how we can bring those all together.
Yeah, fantastic. And Meg-John, how about you? Anything in particular you're looking forward to?
There's just again a lot, and I'm interested to see how it will work moving in and out of sessions, because I'm definitely going to have to do a fair bit of that. But I'm particularly interested in the stuff for various ones that touch on kind of intersectionality and power, and also there's a number of kink and BDSM related ones that I'm going to hopefully go to all of those, because that's a topic of interest to me.
Fantastic. And Sitna, anything in particular you're looking forward to today?
No, same as well. I am really interested in the different papers that were submitted, all of them with excellent topics. So I'll try to go in and out and see what I can, what I can gather. But I'm looking forward to it.
Fantastic, thank you, and thank you so much for doing this and volunteering your time for this. It's lovely to have your perspectives. We'll see you again at the end of the day. I'm really sorry we couldn't get David involved, because I know he's been a big supporter of what we're doing as well. but we'll figure something out. So yeah, we'll figure that out. So hopefully everyone knows where they're going. You should have everyone should have a Word document. Vivian put it together, and Ali's been sending it out, which has all the links. You are allowed to panel hop. Nobody will know. The moderators have been asked to keep an eye on the Zoom waiting rooms, so you shouldn't be waiting too long, even if you sneak in halfway through. And we will see you back here at the end of the day for a final round table. Thank you so much, and we'll see you later.